Lucerne, Switzerland, in late winter, was the kind of place that could fool you into thinking the world was at peace. The city's lake shimmered under a thin veil of mist, framed by the snow-peaked Alps and the warm golden glow spilling from centuries-old buildings. Tourists wandered cobblestone streets, blissfully unaware that in less than 24 hours, their city would host the most dangerous collection of human beings on Earth. The Helios Summit Center, a glass and steel fortress on the edge of Lake Lucerne, had been transformed into a heavily secured island. Helicopters thundered above. Black SUVs with tinted windows glided silently along closed roads. The Swiss military had set up perimeters a kilometer in every direction, but real control belonged to the man who wasn't on any of their rosters. Varek Dravik, Prime Minister of Soryvia. Dravik's official biography painted him as a reformer, the man who dragged his small, resource-scarce nation into an era of technological sophistication. The truth was darker. He hadn't risen to power by winning hearts. He had done it by breaking wills. His enemies disappeared, his rivals withdrew from politics without explanation, and his allies prospered beyond any reasonable measure. It was whispered, never written, that his private intelligence network, the Falcon Directorate, kept detailed blackmail dossiers on hundreds of influential figures across the globe. Tonight, Dravik stood alone in the penthouse suite of the Grand Alpina Hotel, a glass of mineral water in hand, staring out at the black water of the lake. His reflection in the window looked like a shadow cut from the night itself, sharp, unyielding, and dangerous. On the table behind him sat a row of slim titanium cases, each no larger than a hardback novel. Inside, encrypted drives pulsed faint green light, like hearts beating in sync. Each drive carried secrets, phone calls recorded without consent, surveillance photographs, financial ledgers, intimate confessions extracted in moments of weakness. Dravik moved to one of the cases and pressed his thumb to the biometric lock. The lid lifted with a faint hiss. He selected a drive labeled only C-4/2021 and inserted it into a laptop. A grainy video filled the screen, a European finance minister in a private villa, accepting a sealed envelope from an unidentified man. The minister's face was pale, his eyes darting nervously toward the camera he didn't know was there. Dravik didn't watch more than 10 seconds. He didn't have to. The knowledge of its existence was enough to ensure the minister's cooperation in tomorrow's vote. The Global Stability Conference had been marketed as a chance for world leaders to agree on climate initiatives, energy security, and cooperative economic frameworks. The media called it a beacon of hope in uncertain times. Dravik called it an auction. Every signature on the conference's agreements would be bought, not with money, but with fear. Morning arrived cold and silent. From the balcony, Dravik watched the motorcades weave through Lucerne's frozen streets toward the Helios Summit Center. His secure phone vibrated once. "Report," he said. "We have compliance from 12 delegates," came the voice on the other end, one of his Falcon Directorate operatives. 4 are resisting, 2 more undecided. "They won't resist after tonight," Dravik replied. "And the Americans?" "They're cooperative. We reminded the president's brother what happened in 2015. "Good." Dravik's lips curled into a smile. "By midnight, they'll all be mine." Inside the Helios Summit Center, the air was heavy with the smell of polished wood and expensive cologne. Delegates from 32 nations gathered in the main hall, an oval chamber lined with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the lake. The centerpiece of the table was a globe carved from black marble, its continents inlaid with gold, its oceans in silver. Dravik had insisted it be there, a symbol of the world as he intended it to be. Dark, cold, and under his control. The public session began with speeches, promises of cooperation, mutual trust, shared futures. Cameras flashed, applause echoed. But in the breaks between handshakes, Dravik's people slipped into side rooms with key delegates, delivering thin folders or small electronic devices. Inside each envelope was something the recipient didn't want anyone else to see. By midday, more than half of the table was compromised. Some leaders signed agreements on the spot. Others asked for time, a request Dravik granted with the confidence of a man who already knew their answer. The real work began after sunset. The closed-door session was invitation only. No aides, no press, no official records. Just 32 world leaders and a handful of interpreters bound by non-disclosure agreements. Dravik rose slowly, his movements deliberate. He placed a stack of cream-colored folders in front of him, then began in a voice that was soft but carried to every corner of the room. "My friends," he said, "I will speak plainly. The world is fragile, too fragile. You think you can fix it with policies, with speeches, but speeches don't keep your enemies from striking. Only control does." He opened the first folder and slid it across the table to the Chancellor of Australia. The man's face went pale. Another folder to the Prime Minister of Wessia. Photographs of her son at a private gathering with known extremists. Another to the President of the United States. Transcripts of phone calls that could ruin him within a week. "What is this?" the President asked, his voice tight. "Options," Dravik replied. "Sign the treaty I've prepared, and these remain locked away. Refuse, and tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the world will have a copy." For a long moment, no one moved. The snow outside had stopped, but the air inside the chamber felt colder than ice. One by one, leaders reached for pens. By midnight, 27 signatures graced the pages of Dravik's treaty. In his suite, Dravik poured himself a glass of dark rum and stood at the window, watching Lucerne sleep. Tomorrow's headlines would hail a historic agreement on energy cooperation. None of them would mention that the treaty gave Soryvia centralized control over the electrical grids of 27 nations. None would say that with a single command, Dravik could plunge half the globe into darkness. He raised his glass in a mock toast to the city below. "Peace," he murmured, through obedience. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang midnight, and Varek Dravik smiled, because he knew the world had just been claimed, and it didn't even realize it.